Hey guys, what's up? Nick here once again, and this is another tier list on the Twisted Metal levels, and today it's going to be on Twisted Metal 2's levels. I'm very excited to get into this one, and I think a lot of you guys are as well, so let's jump right into it. We're going to be going from left to right. I created this tier list myself on TierMaker's website. If you would like to make your own tier list out of this one, I'll have a link in the description below. And if you end up making your own tier list through there, I would very much recommend you taking a screenshot of it and posting it within the community Discord. So starting from the left here, it looks like we're looking at Los Angeles, which is the very first map in the game. And this is a very iconic map. Just like when we were looking at the levels of Twisted Metal 1, I feel Los Angeles has always been a very iconic map for a lot of people, not only because it's the first one in the tournament, so it's the most seen map in the game basically, but I just absolutely love the design of this one. It's a perfect circle essentially, but it doesn't make it feel like you're stuck in a circle. There's a lot of twists and turns in this one, a lot of cool little gimmicks around the map to really give it some life. There's even some tunnels around that you can jump on top of if you'd like to. You can break through some glass to get inside the tunnel from the middle of it to cut off opponents. There's jumps. There's little humans running around the map, which is really funny. That you can actually hit them and kill them, which is crazy. They got away with that in a T-rated game back in the day. And there's even environmental hazards, such as the lightning pickup you can get to shock your opponents to do a lot of extra damage. There's a ton of cool little things throughout this map, and the soundtrack, by the way, is absolutely killer. Probably one of my favorite songs in all of Twisted Metal history. So for me personally, I gotta give Los Angeles an S tier. It's just, I don't really have any complaints with this map. It doesn't feel like it's got a weak flow to it at all. There's nothing that sticks out to where it's unfair to the player, or it makes it so you don't see any enemies for long periods of time. It's a perfectly sized Twisted Metal level. Next is an interesting one. So you will notice a few of the levels in this list are secret levels. They're not actually in the tournament of the game. You can only get them with a certain cheat code, and you have to only play it in 2-player. So sadly, I wasn't able to get any recordings of this myself because I don't have 2 different controllers to use my emulator. So I was able to find some YouTube videos of people playing these games in the past. So that is the gameplay you are seeing here. And the first one is the Rooftops map. This is literally just a carbon copy and paste essentially of the first Twisted Metal's Rooftops, the final level. And it's great. Now, I love the rooftop maps in the first game. I gave it an S tier rank. However, because this is just a copy and paste of that map, there's no real added benefit to it. There's no added features to it. And in my opinion, I think New York is a better map that's already in the game. So I am going to lower it down to an A tier. And also because you can only play it for some reason in multiplayer. You cannot play it single player. It's such a bummer with all these secret maps because these are cool looking maps. I just wish I could play them myself. Next is another secret map. This is essentially kind of like a call out to single track for making Jet Moto because they made both games obviously. So they just decided to throw a Jet Moto map into Twisted Metal. In my opinion, it does not work at all because it literally feels like a racing map. And when you have a racing map in a car combat game, it really like ruins the flow of battle. It just doesn't give you enough space to get around and hide from opponents and all the above. So it doesn't really work, but it is a cool little neat, Easter egg, so to speak. So I have to give it a little bit of a leg up for that. So it's literally just enough to keep it on a trash tier for me. So yeah, the Jet Moto map is going to be C tier. Next up is Moscow. This is the second map in the tournament, and it's honestly my least favorite in the entire game. It's not that it's small, like it is a smaller map, or it probably is the smallest map in the game by far, but that's not the reason I don't like it. I don't really mind small maps in Twisted Metal games. I think they could be fine if they have a good flow to them, a unique look to them, or some extra features you can find throughout the map, and if they give you enough weapons to actually survive in the fight. The biggest problem with Moscow and TM2 is you are literally forced to essentially gather as many weapons as you can in the previous map of Los Angeles before you get moved to the second level. If you don't do that, like I barely ever remember to do that, you will start with little to nothing, and this map will give you nothing to fight with. You are at that point forced to ram people and use your machine guns, and it's horrible. You will die a lot. So that's why for me personally, I'm gonna have to put Moscow in the trash tier. I know there are a lot of fans of this map, and I can understand to a degree why you guys like it, but because of that one exploit, it's not even really an exploit, it's just something they completely missed or looked over in the development, and because of not having enough weapons to actually fight with on this map, and that is a very small map, it makes it one of the most challenging in the game. yeah, it's just not a fun map to play, and that's why it's in my trash tier. Next up is Paris. I think this is probably the #1 map people think of when they think of Twist Metal 2 right off the bat. I'll be honest, it's not the first one that comes to mind, but we'll get to that later. But Paris is definitely an iconic map, and that's because of the Eiffel Tower that you can actually destroy, and it turns into essentially a second map on top of the level. It's very unique. It was one of the very first, if not the first, environmental changes you could make in a Twisted Metal level. And because of that, it's gone down in history as one of the greatest maps of all time in Twisted Metal series for a good reason. Because not only is that a really cool feature, of course, the soundtrack is killer. The actual level design is really well done. It's fun to weave through the streets of Paris and blow away some parts of buildings to find secret areas, to get teleported to higher levels. And of course, when you blow up the Eiffel Tower, it's a really cool cinematic that's built into the level itself. So you all know Paris is going to be S tier. Next is Amazonia. Now this is a very interesting one. I think when you look at it from an outsider's point of view, you're not actually playing the game, you're just looking at gameplay. This map looks very boring. There's not much to it really. It's a very thin layer of track that essentially goes around in almost like an octagon shape around a layer of lava with a little bridge in the middle. Not really too much to gawk at, but the actual design of the area around you is really cool. It really makes you feel tense and claustrophobic, even though it isn't a wide open map. It's really hard to explain, but it really does make you feel that way. And there's a couple secret areas to find, including an underground bridge, which is really nice, and you get some cool power-ups in there. There's also a little island off in the distance that you can drive to the lava to get to. You get to a teleporter, which brings you to a secret area. There's a couple little cool things like that around the map, which I really love. And of course, the lava itself is a really unique, I don't know if it's a gimmick, but it's a unique feature to the map, where if you drive through it, you take damage. Same with if your enemy falls in the lava, they also take damage, but it's not enough damage to where it's annoying, and I think that's a good thing. They could have easily made this map extremely difficult, just like New York, where if you fall off the rooftop, you die immediately, right? They could have done that, where if you fell in the lava, you just sank to the ground and died, which in real life, that would have been the case, right? But in terms of actual gameplay and making the experience better for the player, they didn't do that, which I'm very happy to say that. And of course, this map is iconic because it's where you fight Minion, which he didn't show up to the very end of the first game, so having him show up randomly in the middle of the tournament really threw off a lot of players, including myself. It's really scary to go against him. He's a very tough boss, but it makes him a lot of fun to go against. So yeah, Amazon, I really don't have any complaints other than that maybe it's a little bit on the quote-unquote bland side because there's not like a whole lot of verticality and stuff like that. But because of everything else I've stated, I do really believe this one is an S tier. This is going to be a very top-heavy ranking list, I'm going to be honest right now, because TM2 has some of my favorite maps in the entire series. Even though I have my gripes with TM2, it's not my favorite game by far in terms of gameplay, and its physics I'm not a fan of, but the actual level design, I mean, bravo. They did an outstanding job. If they could remake these maps into a brand new Twisted Metal, I would be so happy. They kind of did that with Head On, to be honest, and that's why I love the level design in that one, and of course we'll get to that tier list eventually. But I just wanted to say that if you're seeing a lot of maps in the S and A tier, that is the reason why. Next is New York, and now when I said that the first level that comes to mind when I think of TM2, it is New York. I think the reason for that is because this is just the bigger, badder brother of the Rooftops level in Twisted Metal 1. However, there is some gripes that I'm going to get to in a second with it. But the major thing is, it's just really cool that you really feel like you're up on top of a New York skyscraper in this map. The actual design of the skybox around you is just gorgeous to look at. It really brings my anxiety up as well because I have a huge fear of heights, and it really makes you feel like you're really high up, where I didn't get that same feeling in TM1. It might have been the limitations of the area around the game and, you know, how much poly count they had for the map design, but they definitely blew it away with this game. And of course, the iconic Statue of Liberty that you can actually destroy and turn into other things, which is really hilarious as an Easter egg. Very cool. And there's also other things in this map that's not just you're on a rooftop and if you fall off you die. There is teleporters, there's buildings that you can actually break through different layers of through the windows. There's even a pool you can fall into and go into a locker room and get weapons and stuff. There's so many different cool little sections in this map that really make it, to me, iconic, at least, to where this is the map that I always think of when I think of Twisted Metal 2. However, is it my favorite map in the game? No, it's by far not my favorite. And that's mainly because the issue I have with this map is with the physics of the game being so fast, you can go around a corner and get clipped on it, you hit it and you go flying and you take a ton of damage. You can easily fall off this map a lot easier than you could even in TM1, in my opinion. On top of that, there's a lot of sections of this map where if it's your first time playing it for sure, you're going to miss some jumps, or there's going to be areas where it looks like if you jump off, you're going to fall to an area below you, but it's actually just a giant gap to your death. And kind of ironic because I was talking about how in Amazonia, for the players' benefit, they decided to make the lava, not do as much damage, to make the gameplay feel a little bit more freeing and a little bit easier to make it more enjoyable. They did the exact opposite here with New York. To the player's detriment, they just added all these sections where you can fall through the cracks essentially and fall to your death, and that I don't necessarily like. I don't think that was a good choice, and it makes this map one of the hardest in the game, if I'm being honest with you. So yeah, that's why it's not an S tier at that point, but I will still leave it at an A tier just because of how iconic it is to me, and I love the absolute look and the flow of the map overall. Next is Antarctica, and a lot of you might be surprised to hear this, but this actually is my favorite map in the game. It does have some of the same issues New York does, but I will say they made the falling off the map to your death not necessarily as much of an issue in this one, at least for the first few minutes. The cool dynamic to this map, or feature I should say, is that the floor over time will randomly fall. Pieces of it, chunks of it will fall off because you're on a glacier in the Antarctica. And it looks super dope. I love how the ground kind of has a shockwave effect, and then it starts moving up and down, letting you know, hey, you better get out this section or you're going to die. And it does get smaller over time to bring you closer together to fight in more close proximity, kind of like a battle royale nowadays, if you think of it that way. I absolutely love the flow of this map. It is essentially just a giant circle at the very beginning, and then as the pieces and chunks fall off, it becomes more of a unique shape, if you will. But it's got some interesting layers to it. It's got some ramps. It's got some areas that kind of go down and in these caverns where you can shoot and get verticality over people. And there's even a teleporter that brings you to a little island glacier off in the distance that thankfully never falls. So it's kind of like your safe space, if you will. Also, just the soundtrack in this map is one of my favorites as well in the game. Absolutely breathtaking, and it just looks really pretty. If I was to give it any complaints, the only issue I'd have with the map is that it's one of the more difficult ones, because if you're not very quick to killing everybody, the longer you're alive in the map, the less the map there will be to actually play on, and thus you could fall off and die. But it's not nearly as unforgiving as New York is, so that's why I'm not going to really knock points off because of that. And that's why, for me, Antarctica is an S tier map. Next up is Holland. This is a very 50-50 for a lot of people. You got the people that absolutely love this map because it's the most people you'll fight against in one time in one arena. And then you got people who absolutely hate this map because of how bland it is and it's so small. So you're just confined into a small area with a ton of people, and that makes it very challenging. I can understand from both sides of things, honestly, and I'm very much in the middle on this one. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. I think it is a little bland in its design. I mean, that's kind of what they were going for. It's literally just a cornfield with some windmills in it that you can go inside of and get some health, and the windmills can be destroyed. But once they're destroyed, there's literally nothing in the map but a cornfield. So yeah, in terms of aesthetics and design, it's by far the blandest in my opinion in the whole game. Not really a fan of the look of it. Soundtrack's just okay to me. It's not super memorable. But I will say it is fun jumping into this one, going against, I think it's 9 opponents. It's either 8 or 9. And going against that many people in this game is hectic fun, but it's really fun as long as you're not playing as a character with very weak armor, when you can just die in like 2 hits. So because of that, I think this is the perfect B map for me. It's just a very mid-range. I don't love it and I don't hate it. Next up is the final map in the tournament, Hong Kong, and this is kind of an iconic map, I think mainly just because of Darktooth, and it's the first time we've ever seen him, and he's a very difficult boss and a very difficult game. So a lot of people remember Hong Kong as just being the hardest map in the game, but that has nothing to do with the map itself. I would say if you were looking at just the levels as a form of difficulty for the player, New York takes the cake for me. And that's just narrowly edging out Moscow because of, not having the much weapons to choose from and you're in a close quarters combat. But yeah, New York for sure is the hardest in the game. But Hong Kong, the actual level design is really cool. And I think it's one of the biggest maps in the game. It feels really large. It's very spread out. And that's kind of why my biggest issue with the map is because of how spread out it is. there's a lot of times where you can go into a section and not find an enemy for like 3 minutes at a time. Sometimes that's good though, because you can get away from the action to go get some health and some pickups and stuff, and it really does feel more like a TM3 or 4 map to me in that regard, because those maps are so large, you could get away from people, and it was a slower paced game, all in all. But because of that, this is in TM2, it really sticks out like a sore thumb. I think they just could have cut out a couple sections of this one, maybe cut out the whole like harbor area where you go off the jumps over the streets into the water. You could cut that area out, or you could have even made the whole area where that temple is in the middle, we can get up on top of it and stuff. Like, that could have been its own map right there. So there is sections in this where I feel they could have cut out or like cookie cuttered it a little bit to make it a little bit more engaging, to make you really forced to be around enemies more often. But I understand for Darktooth and how big that car is, they had to have a larger map. So that's why I get what happened with Hong Kong, but it's definitely far from one of my favorite maps. I hate to do this. I don't want to put it as low as C tier, so I will bump it up a little bit, but it is going to be a B tier map. Even though I know a lot of people love Hong Kong, I do love the aesthetics of it, by the way. I love the soundtrack, and I think it has a cool design. It's just a little bit too big for my liking, and yeah, this just becomes more bland than not. And the last level on the tier list here is Cyberbia, which, just like the rooftop map in the secret code area, we have a secret map here that is a carbon copy of the Cyberbia. I always said that word wrong, but the Cyberbia map in TM1. And I absolutely love that map in TM1. You guys know it was in my S tier ranking from the previous video, and I do stand by that. I think it's by far the best map in that game. But I'm looking at this list strictly as a Twisted Metal 2 map, and when you got all these amazing maps in TM2 and you come to this, it really is a step backwards. Like, it really does feel like this is from a different game. It doesn't feel like it can just fit into TM2. And because of that, you know, I'd have to lower it from S tier, of course. It just does not feel like it fits in this game. And I don't think they really changed anything from the TM1 version. So I can't give it S tier, but I will still give it an A tier ranking, just like Rooftops, because it's still an amazing, iconic map, but it definitely should stay in TM1. So this is my final tier list of the Twisted Metal 2 levels. Again, you guys do not have to agree with me in any way, shape, or form. If you don't, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your guys' tier list, as well as, like I said, check out the link in the description to go make your own, take a screenshot of it, and post it in the community Discord. I always love seeing your guys' tier lists and what you guys think is the best and worst maps in the game. But this is my list, and I'm very proud of this one. I think this is a lot of fun to do and come back to these maps after all these years to get to check them out for you guys. So that is it for this tier list. Be on the lookout for my next tier list on the levels of Twisted Metal 3. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that one. Leave a like to show your support as always, and we'll hopefully see you in the next one. Peace out. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of the video. Before we head out, I want to give a huge special thank you to our channel members. These are amazing people who are wanting to support the channel and the content here. And if you want to do the same, you can click the little join button underneath every single new upload. And in becoming a channel member, not only supports me and the channel, but also gives you a ton of perks in doing so, including early access to new content and being a part of exclusive polls and information that other people would not be able to access. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you again so much for the love and support, and we'll hopefully see you in the next one. Peace out.